The idyllic California sunshine seemed to mock the darkness that was about to unfold in Carlsbad. September 2016, a seemingly ordinary night, would forever be etched in the town's history as the night Greg Mulvihill's life took a horrifying turn. A simple phone call, a request for a meeting at a secluded spot, was all it took to lure him into a trap. What started as a seemingly innocuous encounter would quickly unravel into a chilling tale of betrayal, a love story turned toxic, and a murder-for-hire scheme that shocked the community to its core. Greg and Diana Lovejoy, a couple who once epitomized the picture-perfect life, a beautiful home, a young child, a future brimming with promise, were now locked in a bitter custody battle, their once loving relationship shattered by accusations, restraining orders, and a deep well of resentment. The love they once shared had transformed into a war, and one of them was willing to go to deadly lengths to win. That fateful night, as Greg stepped into the darkness, he had no idea that a gun was pointed at him. The single gunshot that rang out that night was just the beginning of a shocking story that would leave investigators stunned. The truth, when it finally emerged, would reveal a plot of deception, a chilling betrayal, and a twisted scheme that no one could have imagined. This is the story of Greg Mulvihill and Diana Lovejoy, a tale of love gone wrong, of hatred fueling a deadly plot, and of a crime that ended with an unbelievable twist. In the early 2000s, Greg Mulvihill and Diana Jean Lovejoy seemed like the perfect couple, two ambitious, fitness-loving professionals who shared a passion for the outdoors and a desire to build a future together. Greg, a skilled computer programmer from Oregon, had moved to California in pursuit of career success, while Diana, a dedicated fitness instructor and YouTuber, was making a name for herself in the health and wellness space. Their love story began in 2005 on a dating site, where their mutual interests in technology and an active lifestyle quickly brought them together. Friends saw them as an ideal match, describing their chemistry as effortless and their connection as deep. 2 years after they met, they exchanged vows in a private ceremony, sealing their commitment with the purchase of a home in Carlsbad, an upscale coastal city known for its stunning beaches and luxurious resorts. On the surface, their life seemed picture perfect, but beneath the facade, a much darker reality would soon unravel, leading to a shocking and sinister twist no one could have predicted. At first, Greg and Diana's marriage seemed strong, but behind closed doors, they faced a series of hardships that would ultimately tear them apart. Their struggle with infertility tested their resilience, with multiple miscarriages before they finally welcomed their son in 2012. While his birth brought immense joy, it also came during a time of growing stress. Diana's health began to decline as she suffered from chronic fatigue, a condition she believed was fibromyalgia. Adding to her worries, she became convinced that their son had a kidney-related illness. By 2014, financial strain had taken its toll. Greg lost his job, leaving Diana as the sole provider for their family. The pressure mounted, and their marriage began to unravel. What followed was a shocking turn of events. Diana accused Greg of drugging and assaulting her while she was unconscious due to her condition. A friend, Neola Mace, later revealed that Diana believed Greg had assaulted her multiple times and even threatened her if she attempted to gain sole custody of their son. Authorities investigated her claims, but the court found no evidence to support them. By 2016, a judge ruled in favor of joint custody, but the battle between Greg and Diana was far from over. What began as a love story had spiraled into a bitter, high-stakes conflict, one that would soon take an even darker and more sinister turn. By 2016, what had once been a marriage filled with love and shared dreams had turned into a bitter and drawn-out battle. The couple had separated, locked in a contentious divorce and custody fight over their young son. The legal proceedings, which had begun in 2014, stretched on for 2 exhausting years. At first, Diana had full custody, with Greg restricted to supervised visits. But when her abuse allegations were discredited, the court shifted its ruling, granting them joint custody. The decision was a major blow to Diana, who was also ordered to pay Greg $100 a month in child support and give him $120,000 from the sale of her condo to settle his share of their Carlsbad home, which she kept. Resentful and unwilling to accept the court's ruling, Diana found an ally in an unlikely place, her gun instructor, Weldon McDavid, a former Marine sniper. Their connection quickly turned into an affair, and what began as shared frustration soon escalated into something far more sinister, an ominous plot that would bring Greg dangerously close to losing more than just a custody battle. Late on the night of September 1st, 2016, a frantic 911 call shattered the quiet in Carlsbad, California. Jason Kovacs, a close friend of Greg Mulvihill, urgently reported that Greg had been shot. He described a terrifying scene, a sniper attack on a secluded trail near Avenida Soledad just after 11 p.m. Greg was rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery, while investigators scrambled to uncover the motive behind the ambush. As police dug deeper, they learned that Greg was entangled in a bitter divorce and custody battle with his estranged wife, Diana Lovejoy. When they questioned Jason, he revealed a chilling detail. Greg had received a call that night from a man claiming to be a private investigator. The caller insisted he had crucial evidence that could help Greg in his legal battle. There was just one catch. Greg had only one chance to retrieve the documents, and they would be waiting for him on that trail. Greg immediately sensed something was off when he received the cryptic phone call. The idea of a private investigator dropping off critical documents in the middle of the night on a secluded trail felt suspicious. Unsure of what to do, he reached out to the Carlsbad Police Department's non-emergency line, explaining the situation. While the dispatcher agreed the call was unusual, they didn't express major concern. Still uneasy, Greg wasn't about to go alone. He asked his friend Jason Kovacs to accompany him, and Jason agreed. The caller had given specific instructions. The documents would be left near a power pole along the trail. Knowing they were walking into a potentially strange situation, Greg and Jason armed themselves with a flashlight and a baseball bat before heading out. As they approached the designated spot in the darkness, the atmosphere turned eerily silent. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from the bushes. Their flashlight beam revealed a man, dressed in full camouflage, lying flat on his stomach. Before they could react, he raised a rifle and pointed it directly at them. Instinct took over. Greg and Jason bolted in the opposite direction, but it was too late. The sniper fired multiple shots, and Greg was struck once under his armpit. At the crime scene, police made an unusual discovery, a towel covered in feces. Suspecting it could hold valuable evidence, they sent it for DNA analysis. Meanwhile, Greg Mulvihill, who had miraculously survived emergency surgery, was ready to talk. He revealed that his relationship with Diana had been turbulent for years, describing their divorce as anything but amicable. According to Greg, Diana was convinced both she and their son were suffering from serious health conditions, despite medical professionals assuring her otherwise. But what investigators uncovered next was even more alarming. Diana had made shocking accusations against Greg in the past. In 2014, during the height of her health concerns, she reportedly confided in a friend that she often woke up groggy and sore, leading her to believe that Greg was secretly drugging and assaulting her while she slept. Though no evidence had ever supported these claims, they painted a disturbing picture of just how deep the animosity between them had grown. Diana took drastic measures in her battle against Greg, securing a temporary restraining order against him by falsely accusing him of assaulting both her and their young son. The devastating allegations initially stripped Greg of his parental rights, barring him from seeing his child. For a time, he was only permitted supervised visits, until the accusations were thoroughly investigated and ultimately proven to be untrue. Once the truth came to light, Greg was granted equal custody of their son. By June 2016, after 2 years of legal battles, the estranged couple reached a marital settlement agreement. As part of the deal, Diana was allowed to keep the family home, but in exchange, she was required to pay Greg $120,000 within 90 days. The money could come from refinancing the house or selling a condominium unit. However, as tensions continued to simmer beneath the surface, it became clear that Diana wasn't ready to let go of the fight just yet. During her separation from Greg, Diana found an outlet in firearms training at the Oceanside gun range. It was there that she crossed paths with Weldon McDavid, a skilled firearms instructor and former Marine sniper. At first, their relationship was strictly professional, Weldon was her trainer, and Diana was just another client. But as time passed, Diana began opening up to him, sharing deeply personal grievances about her struggles with Greg and the ongoing custody battle. What started as a simple instructor-student dynamic quickly turned into something more. Weldon, despite being married, grew increasingly invested in Diana's troubles, offering not just emotional support, but practical help. When she expressed fear of Greg, Weldon stepped in, installing a security system in her home. Each time the court ruled against her, he took it as a personal slight, seething on her behalf. Their bond, fueled by passion and resentment, raised red flags for investigators. When Greg was ambushed and shot on a dark trail, police suspected Weldon wasn't just a confidant. He might hold the key to unlocking the truth behind the attack. At the crime scene, police had little to go on, just a rifle-round jacket near the power pole, consistent with an AR-15, and a discarded towel sent for DNA testing. But as the investigation gained momentum, a crucial breakthrough emerged. Now aware of Weldon McDavid's connection to Diana, detectives compared his DNA to the sample from the towel. It was a perfect match. With this damning evidence in hand, authorities secured a search warrant for Weldon's home. Inside, they found the very gun used to shoot Greg. But one pressing question remained. Was Weldon acting alone, or was Diana complicit in the attack? Determined to uncover the full truth, investigators traced the phone used to lure Greg to the trail that night. It was a burner phone purchased anonymously, but security footage from a Best Buy store revealed the shocking answer. Diana herself had bought the phone, directly tying her to the deadly scheme. When police confronted Diana, she admitted to purchasing the burner phone, but insisted her only goal was to secure full custody of her son. She denied any intention of harming Greg, claiming Weldon was merely helping her navigate the custody battle. But investigators weren't convinced. Authorities believed Diana had orchestrated a sinister murder-for-hire plot, enlisting Weldon to kill Greg. Both were swiftly arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder and premeditated attempted murder. Their fates would be decided in a joint trial, where they each pleaded not guilty. The prosecution painted a damning picture of Diana as a master manipulator. Deputy District Attorney Jody Breton argued that she preyed on Weldon's emotions, feeding him fabricated tales of abuse to turn him against Greg, lies that never had any truth. The courtroom listened as the case unraveled, exposing the bitter divorce, the fierce custody battle, and the web of false accusations Diana had spun to destroy Greg. During the trial, the prosecution presented a shocking testimony from Diana's own aunt, Diana Clark. She took the stand and revealed a chilling conversation she had with her niece on Christmas Day in 2015. Over a meal at a restaurant, Diana casually asked if she could help her find someone to kill Greg. She had it all figured out, Clark testified. Disturbed by the request, she immediately shut it down, telling Diana she knew no such person. As the case unfolded, the court learned how Diana's connection with Weldon McDavid deepened. What began as simple firearm training at the shooting range turned into a heated affair. By November 2015, the two were in constant communication, exchanging countless calls and texts. Prosecutors argued that sometime before August 15, 2016, the pair hatched a sinister plan. The goal to lure Greg to a secluded area where Weldon could ambush and kill him. Diana allegedly agreed to pay him $2,000 for the job, half before the attack, and the rest after Greg was dead. The courtroom listened in shock as the prosecution painted a picture of betrayal, manipulation, and a murder plot driven by lies and desperation. The prosecution laid out a carefully crafted murder plot, revealing how Diana and Weldon worked together to lure Greg into a deadly trap. Instead of contacting him directly, Weldon instructed Diana to buy a burner phone to make the call untraceable. Surveillance footage played in court showed Diana walking into a Best Buy on August 15, 2016, purchasing a TrackPhone, the very device that would later be used to set Greg up. On the night of September 1st, Weldon put their plan into motion. Using the burner phone, he called Greg and convinced him to come to the trail. Diana, fully aware of what was about to happen, drove Weldon to the location and supplied him with 2 of her son's towels. The prosecution argued that this was a calculated move, If Greg spotted the familiar towels, he might lower his guard, believing the caller had a connection to his son. Then came the critical piece of evidence: DNA. Weldon, unaware he was leaving behind a crucial clue, used one of the towels after relieving himself in the woods. Investigators later recovered it, and forensic testing confirmed the DNA was an exact match to Weldon, solidifying his involvement in the crime. The jury listened as the prosecution unraveled each chilling detail, exposing a scheme fueled by deception, desperation, and a willingness to kill. As the clock neared 10:30 p.m. on the night of the attack, Greg's phone rang. On the other end was a man claiming to have crucial documents that could strengthen his case in the bitter custody battle over his son. The caller's instructions were precise: meet at a secluded trail near a power pole where the files would be waiting. Greg, suspicious yet desperate for any advantage in court, didn't go alone. He brought his friend Jason for backup. With only a flashlight to guide them, the two cautiously made their way down the dark path, their footsteps crunching against the dirt as they approached the designated spot, roughly 150 feet away. Then, a noise, a rustling in the bushes. Their eyes darted toward the sound, and in the faint glow of the flashlight they saw him. A man, dressed in full camouflage, lying low to the ground. But it was what he held that sent terror ripping through them: a sniper rifle aimed directly at Greg. In an instant, instinct took over. Greg and Jason turned and sprinted for their lives. Adrenaline surged through Greg's veins as he pushed forward, but then, impact. A sudden, searing pain struck him beneath the arm. He didn't stop. He didn't even realize what had happened. It wasn't until he collapsed into Jason's car, gasping for breath, that the horrifying truth set in. He had been shot. In gripping detail, the court was presented with the harrowing aftermath of the shooting. Greg had suffered both entry and exit wounds, with the bullet piercing just below his right armpit. Surgeons later removed 2 bullet fragments from his back, but a CT scan revealed an even graver situation. Tiny metallic fragments scattered throughout his chest and active internal bleeding in the axilla. Doctors testified that the emergency surgery was the difference between life and death. The axilla houses vital arteries, veins, and nerves, and an unchecked injury in that region could have led to fatal blood loss. Greg had barely survived, but what happened after the gunshot was just as telling. The court heard that Weldon immediately called Diana. When she picked him up, he confessed, "I messed up." That moment set off a chain of events that led investigators straight to him. The evidence against Weldon mounted. Police recovered the weapon used in the shooting from his home, and inside his Jeep, they found damning items: a camouflage jacket and black pants covered in dirt and plant material, likely remnants from the dark trail where he had hidden, waiting to strike. Despite all this, the defense insisted there was no murder-for-hire plot. But with every new revelation, that claim became harder to believe. Taking the stand, Weldon admitted to being at the trail on the night of the shooting, but his version of events painted a very different picture. He insisted that his only goal was to help Diana gain full custody of her son, and that he never intended to harm Greg. Recounting how their paths first crossed, Weldon testified that he met Diana in 2015 while working as her firearms instructor at a local shooting range. As their relationship deepened, Diana confided in him, making shocking allegations against Greg. She claimed Greg was a drug user, owned an unregistered firearm, and, most disturbingly, had assaulted both her and their son. Weldon said Diana had repeatedly sought help from the police but was ignored. Convinced she was a victim in desperate need of protection, he believed he was stepping in where law enforcement had failed. Weldon claimed that by the summer of 2016, he and Diana had devised a plan, not to harm Greg, but to secure full custody of Diana's son. According to his testimony, their scheme centered on gathering what they believed would be irrefutable evidence against Greg. Their strategy to lure Greg to a secluded location under the pretense of handing over critical documents. Weldon said he intended to secretly record Greg taking the papers, then arrange a second meeting where he would offer a blank thumb drive, supposedly containing proof of child abuse, hoping to catch him out. Taking the stand, Weldon justified the plan, stating, "Anybody who's not guilty of child abuse, in my mind, would not come out at night to meet someone or to pick up any evidence that they didn't know where it came from." To him, the fact that Greg showed up at all was proof of wrongdoing. As for the $2,000 payment Diana allegedly promised him, Weldon insisted it wasn't payment for a murder-for-hire plot, but rather compensation for his efforts in helping her gather evidence to use in court. Taking the stand, Weldon insisted that he never meant to kill Greg, only to protect himself. He claimed he brought his AR-15 that night because Diana had warned him that Greg owned a gun. What happened next, he said, was pure self-defense. According to Weldon, when Greg and Jason arrived at the trail, the beam of their flashlight put him at a disadvantage. As soon as the light hit him, Weldon said Greg announced that he had a gun. That's when Weldon opened fire. Not to kill, but to disable the flashlight, ensuring Greg no longer had the upper hand. Weldon maintained that if he had truly wanted Greg dead, he would have easily done so. "I'm a skilled marksman," he told the court. A firearms instructor for 17 years, trained in rifles, pistols, and shotguns by the NRA, Weldon also had extensive experience from his time in the Marine Corps. Witness after witness took the stand to vouch for Weldon's exceptional marksmanship. Barry Reeder, a student and friend, testified that hitting a target from 100 yards away was effortless for him. Christopher Lozano, who served with Weldon in the Marine Corps, echoed the same sentiment. There was no doubt in anyone's mind that if Weldon had truly intended to kill Greg, he would have done so. Described as a precise and expert rifleman, Weldon's skills were undeniable. Fellow Marines recalled his ability to shoot with extreme accuracy from a prone position, reinforcing the prosecution's argument that Greg's survival was not due to Weldon's restraint, but rather a botched execution of their plan. Meanwhile, Diana chose silence as her defense, presenting no evidence to refute the accusations against her. She gambled on the jury deciding that the prosecution had failed to prove her involvement. It was a gamble that didn't pay off. The jury saw through their scheme, finding both Diana and Weldon guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and premeditated attempted murder. The moment the verdict was announced in court, chaos erupted. Diana collapsed, her body crumpling to the floor as gasps filled the courtroom. Paramedics rushed in, carrying her out on a stretcher and straight to the hospital. Meanwhile, Weldon sat in stunned silence before breaking down in tears, the weight of his fate sinking in. During sentencing, the judge made it clear there was no doubt about their guilt. He declared that the evidence overwhelmingly supported the jury's decision. Diana received 26 years to life in prison, 25 years to life for the murder plot, plus an additional year. But it was Weldon, the one who pulled the trigger, who faced the harshest penalty. The judge handed him a staggering 50 years to life, 2 consecutive 25 to life terms, sealing his fate behind bars for decades to come. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as the truth behind the attempted murder of Greg Mulvihill was finally revealed. Diana Lovejoy, the woman who once held his heart, stood accused of orchestrating a chilling plot that nearly ended his life. The love story had turned into a twisted tale of betrayal, a chilling reminder of the depths of human darkness. The details unfolded, painting a picture of calculated cruelty. Diana, driven by a venomous mix of anger and greed, had hired Weldon McDavid, a former Marine and firearms instructor, to silence Greg for good. The plan, meticulously crafted, was meant to be the perfect crime, but fate had other plans. Greg Mulvihill, the victim of a love turned to vengeance, had survived the attack, but the scars of that day would forever serve as a stark reminder of the darkness that lurks within the human heart. The case, a chilling testament to the power of hatred and desperation, served as a stark warning. Love can turn to vengeance, and greed can lead to unthinkable choices. If you found this video compelling, leave a like and your thoughts in the comments. Be sure to subscribe and watch our other videos.